everybody. It's a beautiful Thursday. It's 9 o'clock. I don't know where you are, but here in Pennsylvania, we had a massive monsoon last night. So we're going to go ahead and get rocking and rolling. We're going to talk a little bit about managed detection and response services. We are very proud of our AnexaNet Security Operations Center and our partnership with AlertLogic and all the great things that we're able to do for our customers in the marketplace. So we're going to talk a little bit about today's threats, things that are going on. I'm sure those of you out there have been reading the news and there's something new every day. Our poor friends at Accenture, I think, are going through some stuff. I think the news is giving them a bad break. It sounds like they did some pretty good work on their incident response, but we're going to talk a little bit about why things like this are happening and what we can do about it, hopefully. So I'm Dave Mahoney. I'm the security practice leader and enterprise services architect in our pre-sales division here at AnexaNet. Been doing information technology and cybersecurity for somewhere around 20-ish years. I got more gray on the sides here than you can probably see on my webcam today. And with me as my co-host, I have my fantastic friend Zori Cortez from AlertLogic. Zori, please say hi and let everybody know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to be here, Dave. Yeah, so my name is Zuri. I'm one of the product marketing managers for AlertLogic. So I'll be here work with David talking about all things AlertLogic and AnexaNet. Been with the company a couple of years, and I've been in the industry for quite some time as a sales engineer, systems architect, and now as a product manager. So good to be here.
We're glad to have you. All right, so just a little bit about who we are as AnexaNet. We're going to tell you a little bit about both of our companies and why the partnership, moving these things together, or these companies together and going to market is so important to us, and hopefully we can explain why it should be important to you. AnexaNet is really what we call a full stack engagement and consulting services provider, which means we look and try to tackle all of our customers' problems, really focusing on their business and their outcomes and what they need to achieve, whether that be agility or transparency or end user experiences, all kinds of different things, anything that you would find yourself needing in a digital age to run a digital company. And that goes from, you know, the data center and things that need to get plugged in on the floor all the way up through the cloud, and including development, engineering, and automation for some custom things that maybe just don't exist in the world today. And as you can see, this is very mimetic with enterprise architecture, and that's really how we see ourselves. We see ourselves as an enterprise architecture company, helping people deliver on what's next. Zori, tell us a little bit about AlertLogic.
Yeah, so AlertLogic, essentially what we sell is sleep as a service. So what do I mean by that? Effectively, it is an MDR platform, right? Our goal is to make sure that we ingest multiple different log sources, right? Whether you're in the cloud or you're on-prem, combination of both. Whether you've got SaaS applications, host-based logs, network traffic, we're going to ingest a lot of that traffic and then analyze it, and then really kind of give you a good understanding of what's happening, right, from the perspective of managed detection, but also response, right, working with AnexaNet to actually do a lot of the responses when we do potentially get breached or potentially have an incident. So yeah, as you can see in the slide here, definitely we want to focus primarily on both on-prem and in the cloud. I'm trusted by multiple organizations, and we do work across multiple different regions throughout the world.
Absolutely. So why is this partnership so important? We talked to you a little bit about who the companies are, but I think the partnership and why AnexaNet and AlertLogic have come together really means everything, because it's what really brings the power to this solution and this service that we're providing in the marketplace. And it's really a partnership based on industry validation. This slide says it all, right? You can't beat this. Zori, could you tell us a little bit about the excitement you guys feel around this Forrester graph? I mean, this is really good stuff, and I'm super proud of you guys. I think this is awesome.
Yeah, so AlertLogic was essentially born in the cloud, right? And so we focus on the cloud. And as you'll see in more slides here down the line, we are starting to see a shift into the cloud. And so yeah, we were really excited about this specific quote from Forrester. They're running circles around the competition. That's kind of really the truth, right? We want to make sure that we focus in on our strengths. In this case, it is the cloud. And so when we're dealing with looking at traffic in the cloud, when we're looking at cloud-based services, we're looking at containers, those are going to be the things that a lot of customers are going to have a lot of importance on, right? So we want to make sure that we meet our customers where they're at with our partnership with the NextNet, and really kind of focus in on those key features where we're really managing and attributing to those services, and really getting a lot of the incident response coming from that as well.
Now, so the funny thing is, this is actually a global managed security service provider area that they measured these vendors in. They didn't even have an MDR category, I don't think, when this came out, and they created one, I
Hmm.
think like the following year, and you guys pretty much rose to pretty high on the MDR ranking as well, if I recall correctly. Does that sound about right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's yeah.
It's
I mean,
exciting stuff,
that's
man. And born in
definitely
the cloud, right? That's where we need to be,
absolutely.
especially with all this, what's going on today. People are, we don't have staff in the office anymore. We don't have guys that are sitting in the data center. Born in the cloud. I think that's really important. Cloud native, as it were. All right. So, are you ready for today's threats? Do you know what today's threats are? Do you understand the scope of what today's threats are? But we're not going to sit around and talk about the fear so much as we're going to summarize the fear a little bit. And we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about the impact of the threats that are out there and what they can do. And we're going to try to give you some really useful nuggets of information about how to strategize around this and really move things into 2021 and stop doing things the old way. Security has changed. Um, Cybersecurity as a whole is no longer, never was, by the way, but a lot of people thought it became an IT function. It's not an IT function, it's a business function. And in 2021, where data is gold, and we run in a digital world, and we all run in digital industry one way or the other. I don't care if you're a florist or a bricklayer, you probably have a computer sitting around somewhere that's doing something for you. We need to understand those risks to that data and measure that risk in a way that is impactful and meaningful to us as business owners and consumers and constituents, and then understand what we're going to do to protect it. That's managing a business. So cybersecurity and governance, risk, and compliance is now synonymous with good business practice. And if you haven't made that leap yet, or that's like a new thing to you, which it's been a new thing to some customers that I've spoken to recently, and prospects that I've spoken to, and other people in the industry. It's like, oh yeah, we're not doing half measures anymore. You got to go all the way on this stuff. And so we're going to talk to you a little bit about how you can go all the way, but how you can be smart about it and not suffer this chronic death by tool. And by
Excuse
death
me,
by tool,
Steve.
I mean, yeah, go
The
ahead.
slides are not advancing. There we go.
I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Are we good now?
Yes,
All right.
we are.
So today's threats. What are your challenges today, right? Well, there's digital transformation. Now that's not a scary term. Digital transformation simply means we're using digital assets to accelerate or optimize or increase efficiency in our business to go and attack the market in some sort of a strategic way. That's what digital transformation is. I don't care who wants to wrap other kind of cool things around it. It's about transforming your business using technology and using digital assets to your advantage. Talent shortages. It's hard to keep good people. Um, Sometimes you just, your people want to, they come to work for you and they use you as a springboard and they get certified and they learn new things, and then they want to, they have ambition, and so they want to move on to the next challenge. And so it's hard to keep good people and retain good talent. Sometimes it's hard to find good talent because the world, especially cybersecurity, and Zuri, I'm sure you can attest to this, it's changing so quickly, and we're coming out with so many advancements that are, you really have to understand computer engineering to really dig in deep and understand the benefit of how these things work and why they work the way they work, so that you're protecting yourself. So talent is hard. And then there's tool complexity. You got to buy the tool, you got to implement the tool, and that implementation, especially in the security space, can have a very long time to value, and then you have to manage it and pay for it perpetually. And then we have evolving threats. And again, I'm not going to beat this up. We all know that the fear is there, or the fear should be there. We know that the threat is real. We've had nation state attacks. We've got script kiddies. 71% of all malware that's out there right now is, they're Trojan based, because they're hiding as something that they're supposed to be, and you get it and it's something completely different. There's just all kinds of stuff going on. So if you're not afraid, don't be afraid. Get smart and start assessing your risk and looking at what's most valuable to you, and then call Zori and I, and we can get you set up and move you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Now they're not advancing for me. So other than just the challenges of what's going on in business and cybersecurity, right? The building a 24/7 security coverage platform or operation in your business is costly, right? Security has always been expensive, but it's not getting any less true as things move forward. And so you could be looking at anywhere between $3 and $7 million annually, depending on the size of your business. And these are some of the assumptions that are built around that. And so you can scale it down or up depending on where you are in the world. But if you have 15 to 20 security experts, right, they're going to want additional training and certification that we talked about, right? They want to move forward and progress in their own careers. A junior security analyst is making about 75 grand ish, maybe more, because again, it's a high demand field right now. And your average cost for SOC and SIM tooling and monitoring tools could be somewhere in the neighborhood, and firewalls and all this, the licenses that go along with those. You're looking at potentially upwards of $300,000 or more per year. You do all the math here and you add all this up, and you get up into the millions of dollars pretty quick, especially just in staff and salaries, right? You can't have any less than 3 guys on a SOC. You got to have 1 guy during the day, maybe 1 guy for a second shift, 1 guy in the middle of the night. And even then you're at risk, because if somebody gets sick, you're missing a shift. So what are we talking about? 4, 5 people, right? Depending, for the smallest SOC that you could possibly manage. Gets expensive quick. It's 75 grand or more a pop. Goes up fast.
So that savings there, Dave, what would you do with $3.7 million? I'm pretty sure I'd buy a McLaren.
Yeah, right. I'd go get a really nice sports car or a house down at the beach.
Yeah, that too.
So Zori, talk to us a little bit about some of this other ancillary data around, cloud and strategy, and why kind of these things add to that challenge pool that we're talking about right now.
Sure. Yeah. So the next 2 slides really are some statistics on specifically what's happening currently, right? And what we see is, as people begin to trust the cloud, right? I think now in 2021, especially with everything that's happening with COVID, more and more people are moving into the cloud. So that means that we are either moving into one single cloud, let's say it's AWS or Azure or GCP, or we've got a combination of multiple different cloud services that we're tying into, because maybe we've got Office 365, so we need Azure, but we really want to do our servers in AWS, but we've got some analytics that we need Google Cloud for. So we are moving into a state of multi-cloud strategy, right? On top of that, we've got other customers who potentially are hybrid, right? They've got their on-prem stuff, and maybe not really to fully let go, but they do want to start exploring the cloud. And so they've got kind of a hybrid strategy of both. The problem is that typically, if we're new to the cloud, what we're going to find ourselves is we're going to take one of 2 steps. Either we're going to go and implement very slowly, which is fine. We can definitely move in kind of a slower state and kind of progress as we go, as we need to build into the cloud. Or alternatively, we go too quickly and security becomes an afterthought. And so when that happens, as you can see in the last statistic there for 83%, it becomes a very big challenge, because we essentially are building into the cloud, and then we have to backtrack and say, okay, well, we kind of skipped on security. We have to kind of backtrack and sort that out, right? So having to build a lot of the security-based components within the cloud as we build into the cloud is going to be key there, which kind of leads us into the next slide here, as far as the overall statistics as far as breaches and incidents. With the shared responsibility model, and we'll talk a little bit about this more a little bit later, we are finding that there are problems with potentially not having security as the focal point when we jump into the cloud, right? A lot of customers are identifying breaches. Maybe they're human error, maybe they're malicious threats, attacks of opportunity, but they're definitely there, right? And so what we want to do and avoid, like Dave was mentioning earlier, is ending up in the news, right? That's the last thing we want to do. because we've got an open bucket accessible to the world, or maybe we've got our credentials stored somewhere where they were very accessible and very open. So yeah, I mean, these are going to be the things that we kind of have to keep in mind as we jump into the cloud itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's it always makes me sad to hear that, oh, we did this but now security was an afterthought. Like,
Mhm.
what year? What year are we in? Right? We've got to catch up. We've got to change this thinking. We've got to change this paradigm.
Absolutely.
So all right, so we've done enough of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Let's move past all that, right? What is the solution? We know there's a huge threat landscape. We know that people are moving to the cloud. We know that companies need digital transformation. We've got to start embracing a security first mindset. Security has to be at the forefront of your business operation, right? Governance, risk, and compliance, and how you're gonna solve those threats and put in mitigations to challenge potential risks to your business and to your data. So what are we gonna do? Well, the biggest thing that you can do, believe it or not, regardless of your company size, all right, if you're a covered entity for HIPAA and high trust, if you're a financial institution, if you're a florist, but you have a customer experience program and you're collecting personal information, right, and storing it someplace, and you have couple local computers, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter anymore, depending on what your risk profile is, okay? And to be honest, we are really focusing on, the SMB market here, the mid market, the large enterprise. This doesn't get into startup so much. Your risk isn't going to be there. But the point is, you need to demand a 24/7 expertise with security operations, but you need to demand it with fiscal responsibility. We don't want to be in this $3 to $7 million a year area, right? Don't build it when you can buy it as a service. That's been kind of the IT ethos for many, many years now, right? This stuff isn't new, but it's sometimes harder to build it on your own, to make all of the people work together and get all the policy in place and all the technology in place. It can be very challenging. Why waste your time when the goal is really get to a 24/7 monitoring experience and do it in a financially responsible way to drive compliance, accelerate cloud adoption with a security first mindset as opposed to a security last mindset. Detecting and responding to threats. That's the whole purpose. The whole purpose is about detecting and responding. And the great thing that Zori is going to tell you about in a little bit, this platform has got artificial intelligence and machine learning built into it, which means we're taking very, very large data sets and threat intelligence, okay? And they're doing their own. They're not just using other, Alert Logic has got their own threat intelligence feeds, and they've got their own analysts. They're putting together their own data, and they've been in the market long enough to do this. They're taking those data sets and layering it over what they see happening in their customer environments and saying, ooh, pattern of detection, we got to go check this out, right? You need that real time. That's where we are. 560,000 new pieces of malware detected every day on average right now in 2021. You need real time detection, and you need large data sets that are being combed through with machine learning and artificial intelligence. And then finally, this should really be on the other side of the slide as far as I'm concerned. You have to understand your risk and make sure that you can say, based on this risk, this is what I have to do. And then you build your roadmap based on that risk profile. Everything that we do in security is fruitless without that. It's just death by tool. You're spending money to spend money, and you're not going to get the buy-in you need because you're not conveying the message to the people that need to make decisions. We have risk. Here's what it is. Does this meet or not meet your tolerance thresholds, right? Yes, no, maybe. And then use those answers to go and build your security strategy and then your security architecture. All right, so we talked a lot about the strategic part of it. We've been at 100,000 feet. We're going to start getting lower and lower and lower. So how do we get this 24/7 fiscally responsible solution? We're calling it MDR, right? This is not us. The market is calling it MDR, managed detection and response with risk-based protection. Cost-effective protection with human and machine intelligence combined Okay, we gotta double check the machine. Anybody that knows anything about AI is only as good as the people validating that the responses coming out of the AI are actually real. Otherwise, the AI is broken. So human and machine intelligence, but maximum visibility so that you get actionable alerts to go and do the things that you need to do and have an effective incident response. And we're going to talk about how we get to really, truly proactive incident response here in a couple of minutes. And what's the really best part, as far as I'm concerned, the best part about all this, as a service, a 15-minute SLA, right? Continuously monitoring, continuously actioned. Within 15 minutes, people are on the phone. Alert logic analyst gets a hold of an exonet and the customer, or both. We have a call tree and a call chain that we decide upon during onboarding, but we are on the phone within a 15-minute SLA, and we're taking action that needs to be taken, right? And we have eyes on glass doing what needs to be done. So, Zori, I've talked a lot about, again, we're getting deeper and deeper, and we're going to continue to go down this rabbit hole. Tell us about the platform and about how the service unrolls from the alert logic perspective, and why it's so powerful.
Sure. Yeah. So what you see is there's a new, I guess a new form of thought. Maybe it's been around for a while, but there's left of boom and right of boom, and really what that means is pre-breach and post-breach, with the attack being, or the boom being in the middle. And I think we'll have a slide a little later about it. But effectively, what we're doing is we're mitigating the problem of, we have an infection as far as some sort of Trojan, some sort of malware that's actually been installed in the system, and it's gone dormant, right? As most people know, right? The attack, it kind of reminds me of the movie Hackers. It's not, you've got a bunch of, fancy consoles and everything happens kind of in a split second. It's not really the case, right? It's a great movie, but not really the case itself. Typically, an attacker is going to deploy some sort of malware, some sort of Trojan. It's really going to be dormant for a while. They do have to do a lot of the kind of recon. They have to do a lot of the understanding of, what does the environment look like? What other assets are involved? Which one do I have? That kind of east-west movement mitigation of threats. So that time frame between the initial incident and the actual attack may be quite some time. It could be a couple months. It could be years. It could be, 30 days. We don't really know as far as when that happens. So the key is going to be really to identify at the point of impact, right? When we see some sort of threats, whether it's in the logs, right? Whether we're looking at log review and identifying, well, based on what we're seeing, which is some suspicious activity that doesn't look normal, which, we can do, whether we're looking at the different payloads that potentially are surfacing, right? We want to make sure that we see the things as they surface. We want to make sure that we do our diligence before the fact as well, but in the actual process of an attack, we want to make sure that we're identifying those. And as you can see in the little slide here, right, 2/3 of attacks go undiscovered for months, and that's not really, that's not sustainable. It's not something that really should be. So we want to make sure to detect that as quick as possible during the weaponization and delivery phases, as you see in the kill chain below, so that respectively we can stop that very quickly. And that's really going to be the end goal when we're dealing with attacks, is to be able to identify them very quickly and stop. And that is, like Dave mentioned, a combination of AI and a human element, right? I think Dave hit it out of the park there, right? If you've got AI and your AI is so-so, or maybe just relying on AI, I mean, that kind of leads to problem one. I mean, you've got the Terminator scenario, right, where they eventually take over the world. But effectively, you have to have that human element that's kind of backtracking and looking at, what is the AI actually saying? Are we feeding it the correct data? And if we are, what is the actual outcome? And are we verifying this against a human component that can actually see the logs day to day and kind of progress from there?
I don't think I can build that all by myself with 5 people, Zori. I think I might need help. Sounds like I might be calling Alert Logic.
Absolutely.
All right. Limit breaches and reducing impact of attack. Talk to me.
Sure. So this is what we're talking about: left of boom and right of boom. So I'm per service. So the analogy I love to use here is, what does the military do? before time of war? What does the military do during the time of war? And what does the military do after time of war, right? So before, typically what we want to do is prepare, right? We want to train, we want to make sure that we have the proper weapons, we want to make sure that we have the proper defenses. And when we're talking about cybersecurity, effectively that's the same thing, right? We want to do things like identifying vulnerabilities, making sure that we're patching those vulnerabilities, make sure we're hardening different assets, making sure we're doing configuration checks, making sure that we're doing best practices in accordance to, for example, like CIS in the cloud, if we're in the cloud itself. So those are the things that are going to really kind of make us a very unattractive target as far as being compromised or having an incident, right? We all know, right? If someone really wants to get in the door, they're going to get in, right? Doesn't matter how many locks you put in there, doesn't matter how many cameras you've got on there. If they want to get in, they're going to get in. So what we want to do effectively left a boom is make sure that we make ourselves as unattractive as possible. We make sure that we have a hardened defense as much as possible. But in the event of an attack, we move into right a boom, or essentially post breach. So in that instance, if we're looking at our military analogy, what do we do, right? We, all hands on deck, everyone to the battle stations, making sure that we've got the right personnel at the right place that are communicating, that are effectively engaging the enemy. And that's really kind of the post breach, right? We want to make sure that we have a tool or we have a service, much like the service here with AlertLogic and Exonet, that has the proactive people that are not just detecting, right? That's one thing, that's the easy thing, but actually engaging and saying, okay, let's come together, like Dave said, as a trio and say, okay, what needs to happen? How do we engage? What happened? What are the actual the outcome of the threat? And really, what do we do about it, right? With the boom being in the middle, which is the actual attack itself, which, yeah, effectively we're engaging and making sure that within that 15-minute delay, we not just understand what's happening, right? That's kind of the minimal, I would say the minimal standard. It's really what needs to happen moving forward.
That's the key, I think, that so many people forget about, right? I mean, so if I break this down into very, farmer language, right? I basically live in the country, by the way. So you don't want to be in a situation where you don't know what to do. And these are very high stress situations. Whoa, something happened. Like there's been a breach, it's been detected, like we might be having exfiltration of data or things are getting encrypted, right? But bottom line is the phone is ringing and there are people that are unhappy for some reason or the other, because their data is not available or systems aren't available or whatever. Everybody knows CIA triad, right? Availability is one of those big A's. And when it happens to be a security reason that it's not available, that's where security people need to be there. But these incidents are high stress. If you don't know what to do and what steps to take, that's just as bad as being unprepared on the left side of this boom, right? And not having the hardening and taking that risk averse approach at managing risk and keeping people from getting through the door. Once they're in, and then this attack sets off, right? That you let the spoon go and the grenade goes off, you don't have time for people to be waffling around. Your ideal situation, and I mean this is a little bit of a hyperbole, but your ideal situation is you have someone that walks into the data closet or the server room and grabs the right cable and rips it out of the switch and says, attack over, right? I mean, again, hyperbole. I don't think that we should all do that, by the way. That might be a little bit of an overreaction. Point is, you need to get to that level of specificity. A lot of companies can't do that by themselves. They need help. They can't maintain enough staff and enough documentation and enough robust process to be able to get to that point. And those of you that can, good on you. Great. You're the example, and we should hold you up as a flagship for people, something to aspire to. I think that's fantastic. But I don't know very many that can get to that point. But it's that level of specificity with incident response. And that's why this partnership of bringing us together is we're attacking this whole chain that you're looking at, right? If you take a MITRE framework, we're trying to cover the whole thing as much as we possibly can. Sorry, Zora, I just wanted to add in a little bit there.
Yeah, perfect.
So talk to us a little bit about, this is kind of how we're comparing the buy versus build, right?
Sure. So there's really 3 stages that we adhere to here, right? There's a collect, analyze, and inform. They're critical in their own right because they really set up success in the aftermath of potentially detecting an incident, maybe even prior to. So with collect, right, we want to make sure that we're collecting the right logs. And what I mean by that is, if you're on-prem, obviously we want to collect things like router and switch-based data. We want to collect syslog traffic from other components. We want to make sure they're collecting from our servers. We want to collect network-based traffic. If we're in the cloud, we want to make sure that we're looking at the native services that are native into the cloud, right? In AWS, things like CloudTrail and S3 and config checks. In Azure, looking at Office 365, looking at Azure configs and Azure Event Hubs. So it's really going to be making sure that we're collecting the right data. From that, then the next thing is, well, what do we do with that data? If you've got all this great data and it's just kind of sitting around, I mean, it's not really great for anybody, right? So we want to analyze, and that's really kind of where the partnership with AnextNet and AlertLogic comes in, is that we're analyzing the data, right? We get it, right? Maybe you have a small team, like Dave said earlier, where we don't have a SOC as itself, or maybe it's just one or two guys that are network engineers and they just kind of wear a security hat as well, or maybe we just don't have the expertise or the time. That's okay as well. I mean, essentially, effectively, what we want to do is allow us to actually analyze the data for you, looking at the data from day to day, both from the machine side and from the human element side, and really kind of digging into what are the trends, what are the behaviors, what are the things that maybe we wouldn't catch if it was just a bunch of raw data sitting around and kind of not doing much. And of course, inform, right? We want to have a SOC on the 24/7 operations that actually does the work as far as analyzing the data. One of the key things about the partnership with AnextNet and AlertLogic is that we are true 24/7. So we have two SOC operations, right? One here in the US, one in the UK. And it is a true follow the sun, which means that we're not just spending time detecting and alerting on threats, but there's actual threat intel that happens around the clock, right? It is an operation that happens throughout the course of the day and the night, where, let's say at the end of this webinar at 3 in the morning tonight, there's the new flavor of ransomware. We need people to be analyzing that data, to be able to see the indicators compromised, to look at the specific use cases and reverse engineering those threats to really kind of create those correlations and signatures to then push to the customer base to actually have that data as quick as possible. And that's really kind of what keys into the inform side.
And when you say signatures, it's not actually signatures the way we talk about with antivirus. You're talking about a pattern of attack based on things that you monitor in the environment, that data that we're collecting, all that disparate data, right? And you're collecting it from all these different customers, and you see it pop up. You see this pattern of stuff pop up here. You see that pattern of stuff pop up here, and somebody finally goes, "This is weird. This doesn't make sense." And then you make the artificial intelligence and the machine learning smarter, and you put those patterns into signatures, but patterns really into the system, and you push it out to all the customers, and now we're all protected, right? That's the beauty.
Yep.
That's the beauty of it. I didn't want people to misinterpret the word signature there. I think that leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths sometimes. And so you talked about collecting all this data, right? Well, collecting all the data means you've got to cover a lot of stuff. It looks like you guys are kind of running the gambit here, but I see the first thing that's up there is all the cloud built, cloud first, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the name of the game, especially now, right? With everyone working from home and connecting to the cloud in some way, shape, or form, whether it's using IaaS or PaaS, or maybe even just a SaaS application like Office 365. We definitely want to collect from the cloud, right? And that's going to be a big proponent of where we're going to see a lot of the data coming in. But again, we also understand there's people still on-prem that we're going to collect from, and so we want to make sure that we're collecting data from that. Whether it's containers, whether it's on-prem data as far as local servers, but we want to meet you where you're at, right? Whether if you're a Linux guy or gal, or you're a Windows guy or gal, if you're in Mac OS, the end goal is really going to be to collect from those different components and really take that data into the platform, do a lot of the analytics, do a lot of the reporting, do a lot of the notification and data enrichment, and then stepping down is really going to be what you're benefiting from is the expertise, right? Is the SOC that's on staff, looking at those different patterns and user behavior analytics, looking at different trends that we're seeing throughout the course of not just internal to your environment, but what are we seeing outside the world, right? And, Dave mentioned we don't just use one threat feed, right? Where there's actually about 12 to 13 different threat feeds that we use that are both paid and unpaid, on top of our own threat team is actually analyzing itself as well. So that's really going to be where you're going to find the expertise component of it.
That's the power of it right there. All that data from those, you got various threat feeds that from other, companies and agencies, you got your own threat intelligence, and then, feeding it all into this just amazing platform is what really gets me, right? I think everybody, all of the SOC and SIM platforms need to get there. I think that's where the future is. We need to start using these large data sets to our advantage. It's just, and this stacking, right? The coverage, the platform, and then the expertise and the action that gets generated from all this stuff is just, it's so powerful. It would help me sleep better at night. I wish I could buy one license. Can you guys just monitor my home computer?
Yeah. Well, I'll put that into the queue for you.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right, so direct business benefits. We've been talking about this all along, but we wanted to get it on one slide. Essential security coverage, business-focused security expertise, 24/7 operations, really bringing that defense in depth strategy. I think the MDR is the final piece, not the final piece. That's not the right term. It's too strong. It's a very important piece at the inner circles of defense in depth, right? If you look at it from an outside to an in perspective, the 24/7 MDR is really where that creating that really secure inner circle barrier of take action when something gets in that far, right? Protect the perimeter, protect the systems, protect the data. And then if you can't protect the data, or at least somebody getting to it, don't let it leave, right? That's kind of the order of events from how, in the security profession. And that MDR is really that key circle, that key perimeter on this inner side of the defense in depth that I think a lot of people have fallen short on. And it's augmenting that incident response, getting to that ability to know what to do. Sorry, Zora, I know I stole your slide here, but anything else that I missed?
I think you got it. I mean, those are going to be the key business benefits, right? When we're talking about MDR and really managed detection and response, I mean, that's effectively what it is. We're allowing the partnership that we have with Logic and AnexaNet to really cover these different components, right? 24/7 operations, I think, is huge. I just, having worked in both the military side and the civilian sector, it's one of those things that just it's hard to find unless you are a Bank of America, or you're some major corporation, you're an Intel. You're just not going to have the ability to throw a bunch of money at it and kind of hope that it goes away. Being able to outsource that and being able to have the same type of coverage that I would say the big boys have, that's going to be key, right? Because we want to make sure that we're identifying those threats at a given time, like we talked about earlier. 2 to 3 months of kind of wait time from a dwell time between the initial breach and after the fact. So that's going to be critical there.
That's another thing I don't think people understand. The dwell time, right? If you go back to that slide and you look at it, you're actually attacked. Well, not attacked, but you're breached way back here. Somebody's got malicious stuff in your system already, way early. They just don't happen to. They don't pull the pin and let go of the spoon on the grenade until they're ready, because they're just sitting there doing reconnaissance, and then when they're ready, they're like, aha, and now we all have to freak out. But they've been in your system for weeks or months potentially. It only takes 20 seconds for the grenade to go off, right? So this is the next generation that we really are excited about the partnership between the two of us, right? Alert Logic brings this fantastic threat intelligence and the fantastic platform, cloud native, collecting all the proper information in bulk that, it just seems like disparate systems all over the place, but it kind of paints that picture of network flow and communication and data flow and communication. So we can do collection, and we can do collection across a various, a whole bunch of integrations, right? Doesn't matter if they're on premise, doesn't matter if they're in the cloud, we can collect data. Then they're analyzing the data, right? You got to be able to put it together and draw conclusions and draw patterns using extremely large data sets. And you don't want to just rely on your own data sets. You want to leverage other people's data sets and their correlations de-identified. But so you're getting the benefit of what patterns are happening in their environment as well. And then we have the inform, right? The action, the something happened and now we've got to do something and we've got to present information back. But then again, that is only as great. Now you know. But what are you going to do? And that's the respond piece. And so when we put all this together and we add in the alert logic and the AnexaNet advantage, we end up with this a great platform, fantastic analytics, the ability to inform within 15 minutes, and then incident response ready to go as you need it with people that know how to do this, that are used to having the world kind of blow up, not in their face, but having the world be, burned down around them and saying, all right, well, we've got to take some specific actions. We've got to get in charge. We've got to get the right people on the phone. And then in order to shut this particular thing down, we need to go and take these steps, right? So if you don't have an incident response plan, or it's a weak incident response plan, or you need to go build and you're anxious about building an incident response plan, this service together between the two of us is what accelerates that journey of getting to mature incident response, right? So now you've got a SOC, you've got a SIM, you've got response. That's the key, the response. So this is the cloud shared responsibility model. And I think this confuses a lot of people. Like, hey, what are they doing? What am I responsible for? What are you responsible for? I hear it all the time, right? Like, how does this affect my security architecture? I don't really know. It's a challenge. But in a traditional sense, this is usually kind of what it looks like, right? If just pretend that well, don't pretend, but this is a traditional model, correct? So the
Right.
provider has some stuff, and then the customer still has all this other stuff that they got to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As you can see, there is going to be a very distinct separation between what the cloud's responsible for and what you are. And I'll kind of let you jump in here, Dave. But yeah, definitely kind of dive a little bit deeper into that.
Doesn't this look better? If I was going to go to the cloud and I wanted to say, hey, I need to make sure everything's working, this looks a lot more comfortable to me. I've got my cloud provider, I've got alert logic, and then I've got my pals at AnexaNet covering the rest of this ancillary stuff for ops. This looks really powerful to me. So what's my responsibility in the cloud? Nothing. You get to run your business, you get out of the IT and security ops game, and you get to go make money. Isn't that really the goal at the end of the day? Or service your community, whatever floats your boat. Both of them are very important.
Yeah, I would say the key here is really going to be to allow you to do your business, right? I mean, if you're in the business, like you said, Dave, if you're in the business of flowers, that's your business. Your business is not cybersecurity. So we want to make sure that we take care of that for you, so that you can't do run your flower shop, right? I mean, that's how you make your money. So we want to make sure that we take off the security components, so you don't have to worry about that and kind of take that stress off your plate.
Logistics companies, right? Warehouses and trucks and shipping and receiving. You want to get back to making sure you have the most effective routes for your truck drivers. You don't want to be worried about this. But if something happens in one of your warehouse management systems, or to your warehouses or the Wi-Fi, and people can't scan, you're not going to get those trucks out. So let us worry about all that. You get back to worrying about trucks and shipments and customer satisfaction, right? That's really what the goal is here. Don't go build IT when you can buy it affordably. That's what's really key about this whole thing, by the way. We started out there. Fiscal responsibility. It doesn't have to be prohibitively. Cybersecurity, as far as I'm concerned, this is my personal belief, should never be, the cost of cybersecurity should never be a barrier to entry. We're supposed to be the stewards of data and technology in a digital age. That is our job. We are supposed to be pillars of the community, helping people stay safe, almost like police or a military. You're first responders. That's who cybersecurity people are supposed to be, right? why is cost a barrier to entry if you need good security to manage risk and be extortion free and fraud free and just not in business free, right? Nobody needs that. That's noise. Let's do our part. And I think that's really the key piece about this whole thing. We've got all this great stuff that we've talked about, but making it financially responsible and fiscally responsible for our customers to get 24/7 response. Excuse me. All right, so why is this up here? Well, we've been talking a lot about cybersecurity maturity and risk management. I don't want anybody to leave here today and take any of this for granted, that this is a fix-all or the end-all be-all of cybersecurity. That's just simply not the case. Cybersecurity needs to be about risk management, right? Understanding what your business needs to do, what data, technology, people, and process all have to be in place so that you can execute that business in an operationally effective way, hopefully in a fiscally responsible way. And then understanding the risks that are associated to those business operations and the people, technology, other assets, right? Legal requirements, regulations, and then finding ways to mitigate those risks. And that's what the NIST and other cybersecurity frameworks are about. It's about building a risk profile. It's about analyzing controls and information technology and security operations and development operations, incident response operations and policies and procedures, and saying, where are we, right? In terms of the global world, when we all measure ourselves against common frameworks, where are we falling? And now, does that match up with our risk mitigation strategy and our senior management and our regulatory and compliance requirements, or is there something that's off? It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's also doesn't have to be arduous. Sometimes you just need somebody to kind of springboard you into it or explain the process and make it fit your business and create a security program, right, that meets your requirements, that's not so arduous you can't manage it. That's where most people fall short. They think that it's too complicated. They don't understand enough about it to make it work. And then so they just avoid it like the plague. Don't avoid it. It's never too late to start a cybersecurity journey. It's always too late to just pretend like you don't need it. It's because it's just not the case. We live in 2021. Data is king, all right? Whether you're in the stocks, whether you're selling flowers, whether you're selling cars, whether you're making shoes, data is king, personally and professionally. So cybersecurity is a requirement. Zori, anything you want to add on this while I'm on a soapbox?
I was going to go to town there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say that's, I mean, you've nailed everything, exactly verbatim. I mean, it's going to be looking at the framework from multiple different perspectives. It's going to be a lot of the log aggregation. It's going to be having the response. It's going to be being able to identify a lot of that data firsthand. And, like we keep saying, if you can't do it, that's okay. We want to make sure that, I think Davey said it perfectly, right? You shouldn't have a barrier to security, and cost being one of them, right? Because you have companies like ourselves that have that ability to be able to kind of outsource to us to actually do that. So at the end of the day, right? I mean, the end goal is going to be to make sure that you're protected. Whether you're going to try to tackle it yourself, you're going to do it with us. I mean, that's going to be the end goal, right? Is protection, because whether you go with us or you kind of try a do-it-yourself process, right? You're still going to have to be protected, and you're still going to have to go through potential incidents. And so we want to make sure is that we provide you with the best possible service to actually be able to not just detect but also respond.
Folks, listen. Obviously, we always like to wrap these things up with a way for us to help you and help you engage with us. So, we talked a lot about managed detection and response services, the alert logic and an Exanet advantage together, right? Key, very strategic partnership for us. Started last year, but it's been a great year. We're really excited about it. We're having a great time together. Customers are very excited. It's just been a great road so far, and I'm really looking forward to continuing the journey. Thank you all very much for listening. And obviously, you know, all attendees will probably be contacted by a business development representative. And we're trying to do some free vulnerability assessments. And those of you that don't know, right, vulnerability assessments are based on programmatic scanning. We deploy a tool. We look at your environment externally. We also deploy them inside your environment, and we can do one or the other or both, doesn't matter, whatever floats your boat. And we also look at scan your internal networks. And we try to find places where you might be potentially weak. And we balance that, of course, with, you know, other things and kind of a general understanding of your environment. But we give you a really good report to say, hey, these are the things we think you got to go fix right away. These things are also pretty important, but, you know, stick with that top list first, go get those done, and then it kind of goes down in terms of risk priority. But they're really great and easy wins for you as either IT professionals or security professionals to show value back to your business and say, hey, we had a vulnerability assessment done, and, you know, we really improved our posture just on the technology and risk mitigation side of things by taking this activity and this action. And usually the follow-up to these things are kind of penetration tests, but this is the basic hygiene you want to go get out of the way first, just to kind of clean your front door, as it were, but not the front door, the floor mat, the welcome mat. That's it. Clean the welcome. I'm telling you, I'm having a really tough time today. Clean the welcome mat, get it vacuumed, beat it out a little bit. That's the vulnerability assessment. And then beyond that is where you come in with the white glove test and do pen tests and other things like that. So you'll all be hearing from us. We look forward to getting a chance to speak with you, giving out some of those free vulnerability assessments. Zori, thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. It was a lot of fun.